It started as a joke. A careless, stupid, thoughtless joke that slipped out between laughter and wine, but ended up burning down the life I'd spent years building. That night, we were at a friend's dinner party, the kind of gathering where everyone drinks too much and tries to sound wittier than they are. The jokes were flying, the teasing lighthearted. Someone made a comment about marriage being boring, and before I could stop myself, I smirked and said, "Well, maybe that's why I sleep with other men." The room erupted in laughter. Everyone thought it was a joke, everyone except my husband, Ethan. I can still see the way he looked at me, that half-smile freezing on his face, confusion flickering in his eyes before it turned to something darker, quieter. He didn't laugh. He just stared for a second too long, then took a slow sip of his drink and looked away. I remember touching his arm, whispering, "Relax, it's a joke," but his body had already gone stiff. The night went on, people laughed and talked, but I could feel the air between us turn sharp, like something invisible had broken. When we got home, he didn't say much. He went straight to the bedroom, loosened his tie, and sat on the edge of the bed staring at the floor. I tried to brush it off, pretending not to notice how quiet he was. "Come on, you know I didn't mean it," I said, trying to laugh. He didn't even look at me. "Did you?" he asked finally, his voice low, tired. That question pierced straight through me. "Of course not," I said too quickly. But his eyes stayed locked on mine, calm, steady, searching for truth in my panic. I realized then how it sounded. How my tone, my timing, the smirk, everything, had played perfectly into the worst kind of doubt. I sat beside him, reached for his hand, but he pulled it away gently. "You don't joke like that, Sarah," he said softly. "Not about that." I tried to explain, to apologize, to laugh it off again, but he just nodded absently and went to bed early. I thought that was the end of it. I thought by morning he'd realize how ridiculous it all was. But when I woke up, his side of the bed was cold, and his suitcase was gone. On the kitchen table, there was a note. It said only this: "If you meant it, you destroyed me. If you didn't, you still did." I stood there for a long time, staring at those words until they blurred into each other. I called him. Again and again. Straight to voicemail. I texted. I begged him to come home, to talk, to understand. No answer. For the first time in our marriage, he was completely unreachable. At first, I told myself he just needed space. He was hurt, sure, but he'd come around. We loved each other. We had 6 years of memories, of laughter, of quiet mornings and long drives. He couldn't just disappear. But days turned into weeks, and then months. His phone stayed silent. His apartment stayed unknown. His friends claimed they hadn't seen him. It was as if he'd erased himself from my life completely. In that silence, I began replaying that night in my head over and over again. The way the laughter had felt so loud, the way I'd seen something in his eyes I'd ignored. I realized how much I'd taken him for granted, how often I'd brushed off his feelings as if they were too soft, too serious. Ethan was the kind of man who loved deeply but quietly. When he gave his heart, he did it without hesitation. And I'd made a mockery of that love in front of strangers. I started writing letters to him. Pages and pages I never sent. I wrote about how sorry I was, about how empty the house felt without his shoes by the door, his coffee mug on the counter, his laughter filling the mornings. I told him how the silence was unbearable, how even the cat sat by the window waiting for his car to pull in. I left messages, voicemails, anything that could remind him I still existed. But he never answered. One afternoon, about 6 months later, I saw him. I was walking downtown, lost in thought, when I spotted him across the street. He was standing outside a cafe, talking to a woman, smiling, the same gentle smile he used to give me. My heart stopped. I froze, watching as he helped her with her bag, as they walked inside together. My chest tightened so much I thought I might collapse. He looked happy. Peaceful. Free. I didn't go in. I didn't call his name. I just stood there, watching him live a life I no longer belonged to. It hit me then that some mistakes don't shatter like glass, they dissolve slowly, until one day you realize everything that mattered has already slipped through your hands. That night, I came home to the same quiet house, sat on the same couch where we used to talk about the future, and finally allowed myself to cry. Really cry. Not out of anger, but regret. Regret for the man I pushed away with one thoughtless sentence. The next morning, I wrote him one final letter, not to beg him back, but to thank him. To tell him I understood now what respect meant, what loyalty meant, what love deserved. I ended it with the same words he once wrote to me in his wedding vows: "You deserve to feel safe in love." I never sent it. I didn't need to. Because by then, I knew he'd already found that safety elsewhere. And I had to live with the truth that my joke had cost me the only person who ever loved me without conditions. Now, every time someone laughs about cheating or makes a funny remark about love, I stay silent. Because I know too well that words don't have to be true to cause damage, they just have to be cruel enough to sound believable. And sometimes, one careless joke can be the moment you lose everything. He never came back. And I stopped joking. Forever.